Now we're gonna train to come out of the holster quickly and put, we'll just say 1 round on target, and we're gonna see what our times are when we do that. You should be able to consistently do it somewhere between 1.3, 1.5 area. And if you can do it consistently 1.5, I mean, you're above, well above, you know, the average patrol officer, I would say. So just for this first part here, I'm gonna do it like 5 times and see what my times are. I haven't shot today at all, so we'll see how that goes. We touched on a lot of it already, but kind of gonna double back real quick, and maybe this will help you guys too. So personally, when I stand on the range and I'm getting ready to shoot, you know, I'm very conscious about how my body is, you know, all that stuff, because I do it the same way every time. Remember, in the other class, I told you guys about how I wear my gear, my belt when I put it on. I'm making sure my gun is in the spot where I like it, where I know it is all the time. So that's one thing. Now, when I'm, you know, you want to stay squared up, obviously, towards the threat, and that's what everybody's doing. If it's not an issue for you, don't change anything. But, you know, I don't know if there's an actual term for it necessarily, or if it's being said, but I call it a natural point of aim. And so it comes down to, like we talked about with the dot and the things you do with your hands to help you find your dot with your support hand. And so, but the same thing with your body. If I'm standing on the range, or anytime you're standing, like how you guys are standing now, nobody stands like this, right? It's weird. It feels awkward, but it makes sense on the range because it closes your hips, right? So if I'm standing like this, my body wants to kind of just open up and turn that way. And you don't realize it, but as you're shooting and you've been shooting for a long time, you've learned to fight that little bit of deviation, that little bit of turn. So what I do is I just make sure my feet are pointed straight ahead. And of course, you know, basic fighting stance. And again, that comes down to helping me establish my natural point of aim and being able to consistently find my dot every time, and also being able to get away with more. Like, I never really miss, you know, far to the left or far to the right. It's usually up or down, usually, or maybe slightly one direction. But by closing up my hips and facing my feet towards the threat, I limit the possibility of that happening. And you'll see guys, they'll shoot, what times they shoot that at, I don't know, like they do it ridiculously fast, and they tell you they're not even finding their dot. So how are you able to do that? Well, all that other stuff has to be in order for that to be, you know, possible. So we'll go 5 or so and see what my time is. Something like that.
Yes,
1.32. 1.25. 1.15. 1.15. 1.13. None of that stuff is possible unless I do those other things correctly, right? Again, here, all the things that we told you about already in regards to your stance, you know, maybe your feet will help you out, and indexing on your holster. Me doing all those things is allowing me to achieve that. Without doing those things, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I'm pushing myself. I'm trying to go absolutely as fast as I can go, right? And so we're gonna get you guys one at a time, go through, and we'll see what you can do. And so what's gonna happen is you're gonna, I don't wanna call it deficiencies, right? It's just proficiency in drawing from the holster, because you just have to practice it more. It should be that fast, right? I'm moving super quick up my holster. Like this movement right here is super fast, and out here is fast, and then the process of getting my dot, putting it where I want to, and pulling the trigger takes a little bit more time. The whole idea behind this is that you see what somebody is capable of doing, see where you're at, identify the things that will make you faster, and maybe you'll be able to do the same thing. Were you able to get the target? Because that's important. People think I'm shooting past the target or something.
You always got to show your hits.
I mean, all right, so 2.3. You should be able to break everything down that you're doing tactically by having a process of doing it, right? We talked about it in the vehicle class. Like if you have a process for doing something, then you get the results you're expecting to get, right? And so I just want to harp on this, and all the classes I do, I harp on this because I hope people will pick it up and understand. And then when we start moving real quick, you'll understand even more. But I have a process for how I do that right there. And that's how I'm able to achieve that. If we're doing a takedown in a vehicle and I'm the passenger, I know what my job is. I have a process for executing that technique. And as long as I do it, the other stuff should come, right? Specifically for you, like, so a couple times you had a hard time defeating that thing, but that's because you're trying to push yourself. And so think about it in terms of, there's the entire process, but there's all those things in between, right? So the very first thing you have to do is you have to defeat that, right? Because if you can't defeat it and you're pulling it, that's where you're getting hung up. And I know it seems like obvious, right? Yeah. But if you're going to do a takedown and you're a passenger in the vehicle and you know what your job is and you don't pin the door and the car comes to a stop and it rocks you, well, you kind of failed in the process, right? Break everything down into, the entire process, but the individual things that you need to work on, right? 1.44. Good job. I think you have maybe 1.6 something there or something.
Yeah.
You got hung up or something. All right. And you were telling Jake that you do dry firing and pulling from the holster?
Yeah, when I work out in my garage, I have a little setup, and I'll take my gun out there and just in between sets of working out, like I just do some stuff.
It's actually, it seems obvious, of course, again, but we've all done those things. And that's how we've gotten here. Yeah. And it shows that you're saying that you do those things and look at the results. So if you want to achieve the same results anybody, you just have to put in the effort.
Right.
And if you don't think it's that big a deal and you think you're okay, then just roll with that, right? But all right, good. So you're finding your dot right away. Your stance is good. I think the slower part is just a little bit of hang up at the holster.
Yeah.
You're not defeating the holster slow. You're coming out of the holster slow, or it's slightly getting caught up in your leg. And it's personal preference, but my pistol, it's not like straight on my hip, and it's not way over here. It's just barely off center line. So it's not like this, but it's like this.
Just where your hand sits.
Yeah, it's more natural to me, because you think about it, the farther your shoulder goes back, like this it starts to become unnatural.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so your shoulder isn't doing anything if you're drawing from right here. It's in the same spot. But if it's farther back, you got to kind of do one of these.
Right.
But you're doing fine.
Yeah.
So, but if you kind of tweak it a little bit and you think that makes you faster and it works, then just try it.
Yeah.
When we said that word efficient, when they're drawing, the only thing moving is what needs to be moving. There's no extra lean over or any other extra. It's what needs to move is moving, head staying still, and it's just a draw to the presentation.
Yeah.
The other thing, because when we start moving around, that's just inefficient. The other thing, how to practice and dry fire, is you can break it down into small parts, and you can use that shot timer. You should all have a shot timer. And when you're at home, you can set the par times to if you want to achieve a second draw, set the par times to 0.4, right?
Yeah.
And then, so you'll hit the button and you'll hear the beep, and then you'll just draw your weapon and just hold. And then you'll hear that second beep because you're trying to get it under 0.4.
Right.
So beep, beep, and you're just moving that movement right there. Your support hand's coming up, everything's moving together. You try to get that consistently under 0.4. It's just that movement. And then you break it to the second part. So now you start from here to the presentation, 0.4. Beep, 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 beep. And you rep that out. So you're repping that first part, you're repping that second part, and then you put it all together to where you have a sight picture.
Yeah.
You have the dot or your iron sight's on the target.
Just being super systematic.
It's very, very deliberate and systematic on it.